evening. Ted has just gone out to the gym, so I've got the cottage to myself, and I thought it would be lovely for us to do a little illustration Q&A. I've just made myself a hot chocolate, so maybe make yourself a drink, settle down, and yeah, I thought we could have a chat. I didn't ask me anything over on my Instagram, so got some questions from there, and I know someone from YouTube asked on a previous video about agents, and that is one of my, I think probably my most asked question is about agents, how to find an agent, is it worth it? So we'll go into all of that. We're going to talk about agents, my best advice for starting out as an illustrator, and what book cover artists actually earn, because I feel like that is something that I would really have wanted to know before I started actually making book covers. It feels maybe a little bit silly to be doing a Q&A when I've not got many subscribers on YouTube yet, but I'm really loving making these videos, and yeah, I just thought it'd be a good way for us to get to know each other a bit more. If you're looking to build a career in illustration, then I'm going to be sharing everything that I've learned from the last 8 years working as an illustrator, and yeah, over 20 book covers in now. So let's get into it. So the first question, how did you find your agent? Is it worth it, and how does it work? So just straight off the top, I can't really offer advice in this because every single situation is completely different. How it turned out for me may not work for every single person. Every single case is unique when it comes to finding an agent. So just because this worked for me does not mean it will work for the next person, but all I can do is share what happened for me. So I had been illustrating for about 3 years before I considered getting an agent, and then it kind of felt like the right time, but also a big leap at the same time, if that makes sense. And I spent a whole day looking through all the highly respected illustration agencies, looking at the kind of illustrators that are working for them and seeing whether I could imagine my work being sat on the shelf, if you like, with the other illustrators. So not just thinking if you're a good fit for them, but if they're a good fit for you. And then out of all those illustration agencies, I applied to, I think, about 30, honestly, and Illustration X, my agent, were the one who got back and said, you know, we love your work, we'd love to sign you, which that was such a turning point. I think I remember the day so clearly. It was just probably the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me in terms of my work. And yeah, that was about 4.5 years ago now. Been with them ever since. And I remember though it was quite nerve-wracking when I got the contract through, because I was quite young at the time. How would I be, 25 maybe? And I don't really know anything about legalities, things like that. So I was thinking, like, you know, when you don't know anything about the industry and you're thinking, is this legit? Could it be a scam? So I got actually a friend of my dad's to look over the contract with me, and you know, I said, like, do you think this is a good idea? Chatted it through with a few different people. I didn't really have many friends in the illustration world at that point, even online friends, which I have more like artist friends through Instagram now, but at the time I didn't really feel like I had anyone I could reach out to talk about it, which I guess is my way of saying, if you do have any questions about any of these kind of things, then please do let me know, because I know how bewildering it can be when you literally don't know anything. It's the fear of the unknown, isn't it? But anyway, I decided to sign with them, and it was literally one of the best things I ever did, I think. And it's just, ever since then, it started off with small projects, but as the 4 years have gone on, the projects have got meatier, more exciting, and I feel like, yeah, particularly in the last 2 years, I'd say, I feel like things are like finally taking off in a really exciting direction. And I guess a lesson from that is that you only need one person to see your work and believe in your work. So out of all those 30 agencies, you could look at it as, oh, all those other people didn't want you, but that doesn't matter, because it just takes one person to make your lucky break. And then in terms of the question, is it worth it? I would say 100% yes, if you have the right agent. Why I think it's worth it: my agents land me amazing jobs. They take the financial stress out of it, which is a huge thing for me. They negotiate all the fees, whereas pricing your work as an artist can feel so icky, I'm sure you know, if you're an illustrator. Knowing what to price your work, it can feel uncomfortable pitching prices to people, whereas when you're going for your agent, they just take care of all of that for you. Obviously, you can negotiate with them, so they'll say, oh, what do you think of this fee for the job? And if it's not enough, you can say, oh, could we ask for a bit more? And sometimes you get a yes, sometimes it's a no. And I feel like it's only in the last couple of years that I feel more confident to have those conversations. In the beginning, I would just say yes to anything because I couldn't believe that anyone would even want to pay for my work. But then I think as you grow as an illustrator, you understand what your work is worth more. And also I think that's another lesson through working with an agent, because, you know, I started out charging £30 and then it went up to like maybe 100, 150 for commissions. This is when I was also working part-time as a nanny as well. For jobs to come in through my agent and realise what your work is actually worth was just very interesting, and yeah, a learning curve basically. And then one of the best things about being with the right agent is the support that they give you. I feel like I'm not on my own anymore, which is such an underrated feeling, I think. I just feel like my agents have my back, their job is to look after you, and I feel like my agents in particular, their communication is faultless in terms of I send them an email, they get straight back to me, and that again is such an underrated thing in business. You know, when you're trying to get hold of somebody on a job and they either ghost you or just take so long to get back to you, and it's so stressful, whereas it just being quick makes everything seamless, takes the stress out of it. A good agent should make your life better, should make it easier. I feel like if an agent is making your life more stressful, then something has gone seriously wrong. And then in terms of how it works is that the agent will take a percentage of your job. So typically, don't take my word as gospel here, but it's somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of your fee for your job your agent will take. So I think more likely in the UK jobs it's 1/4 and in the US it's 1/3, but that can vary depending on what sector of illustration you're working in. And some people might say, oh, that's way too much, but personally I think it's totally worth it because they are getting me jobs that otherwise would not be coming my way. They are landing me these incredible, amazing projects. So yeah, I think it's totally worth it personally. And also I should say, when I'm saying my agents, that's because the particular agents that I'm with, they are a global company. So whatever country my job's in, if my job's in the UK, then I'll be working on that job with one of the UK agents. If my job's in Australia, then I'll be working with one of the Australian agents. So I don't have one specific agent, it's just whoever is in that territory. Whereas some people you'll sign with their agency and you'll just work one-on-one with a specific agent. Okay, next topic is best advice for starting out. And my top tip would, honestly, it sounds simple, but it would be just to draw. Because I feel like sometimes you can get so swept up with the idea of being an illustrator and the kind of romance behind that. But if you're not actually illustrating, then you're not an illustrator. So you need to be putting in the time, you need to be doing the drawing. There's, I can't remember who it is, a Japanese writer, I think, who has the theory of 10,000 hours. So if you put in 10,000 hours to anything, tennis, art, music, you'll become a master in that craft. And I think that's true. Like, if you want to become an illustrator, get cracking on your 10,000 hours and there's no way you can't get better. I think in the early days, a lot of it is about looking to other artists. There's this term called art parents. So thinking about who your art parents might be. Why is it that you like specific artists' work? Is it the colours they use? Is it the feeling? I feel like, yeah, when I think back to when I was starting out, a lot of it was just looking at other people, and then eventually down the line your personal style will become an amalgamation of all these different references, a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person, all drawn together to make your unique personal style. I think applying for things is another tip. As many things as you can in the early days, exhibitions, art competitions, maybe go and do some markets. I did a lot of markets in my early days and that's really good for confidence building. It's also helpful for you to know for you to see what's popular in your work. What are people drawn to when all your artworks are out there in front of you? You'll often find people kind of beeline for the same thing, and that can be really helpful. Another tip I would have would be to make the projects that you want to call in. So if you are wanting to be a book cover artist, but you're not getting the commissions, make sure you're making book covers and putting them on your Instagram, on your website. No one needs to actually commission you. Show the world what you can do. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction and that what you put out comes back to you. So make the most amazing book cover that you possibly can that feels like your true style, and yeah, get building your portfolio. I honestly would say that I don't think you need to have an illustration degree to be an illustrator. I think it is such a lot of money. My personal experience wasn't the best because it was COVID, but I don't know how good it would have been anyway. And they're so expensive, these degrees, and I think you would have a better use of your money kind of building your own degree by doing lots of short courses for like the same amount of money or a lot less. I think short courses are incredible. I still do so many now. I think that's another tip, to always be learning. You never reach the end. Education is so valuable, but not necessarily, by that I don't necessarily mean go and get a master's degree. I think just, yeah, be on the lookout for short courses. Free things like YouTube videos are amazing. Keeping your mind open and being curious. I would also say to definitely consider part-time work when you're first starting out as an illustrator, and not thinking that that means that you're not a proper artist. I feel like there can be this toxic perception that if you have a part-time job then you're not a real illustrator, and that is a load of waffle, honestly, because if you make art, you are an artist. If you illustrate, you are an illustrator. And I know that imposter syndrome is so real, and it took me so long to be able to say confidently when meeting people, they say, "What do you do?" "I'm an illustrator." I would feel like honestly such a fraud in the early days, like I was pretending that I was an illustrator. But you've got to keep saying it, because the more you say it, the more you will believe it. I'm actually having that same problem at the moment now with calling myself a writer as well, because although I'm very confident in the fact that I know I'm an illustrator because I've been doing it for so long and through certain jobs, and I guess weirdly actually, although it's silly because I just said you don't need an MA, I do feel like it's annoying, but having done my illustration MA made me feel like I could say I was an illustrator, which is just silly because it's just a piece of paper, and I learned so much more in other areas through self-taught work, through short courses, through just putting in all the hours myself, I think. But yeah, honestly, I did feel like it kind of made me think I could call myself an illustrator, which is silly. But anyway, now that I'm writing and illustrating, I'm back to that same problem of I feel like not confident enough to call myself a writer yet, even though I write every day, so I am a writer. But I think it's just getting into that habit. I need to start introducing myself as, "Hi, I'm an illustrator and a writer." We are the stories that we tell ourselves, so get telling yourself and other people that you're an illustrator. And then I thought for our final topic we could talk about money. And I know this is a very kind of taboo topic. As women, I think especially, we think, oh, we couldn't possibly talk about something as crude as money. But it's what makes the world go round, and it's what everyone wants to know about, okay? So I'm not here to gatekeep, and I also feel like a few years ago I would have loved to know and would have found it so helpful to know what book cover artists earn. So I thought I would just give you a rough idea of the kind of fee for the book covers that I've been getting. Again, do not take this as gospel, because this is just personal to me. This is not a one size fits all. Every single job is different. But I would say a typically good fee for a book cover that I personally have been working on is between $1,000 and $2,000. And I say dollars because most of the book covers that I illustrate happen to be in the US. I don't know why, but I just seem to attract book covers in the US. It can be anywhere within that range and above and under. So I've had one for 2,500 and I've had one within the hundreds as well, on the lower end of the spectrum. There'll be different reasons for why certain covers you'll earn more and other ones you'll earn less. For example, if it's a bigger client, like Penguin or one of the big 5 publishers, which is, going off the top of my head, Penguin, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Pan Macmillan, or just Macmillan. I'm forgetting one, I'll add it here. Yeah, if you're with a bigger publisher, then hopefully the fee should be more. Or sometimes there's factors like if they want you to do it really quickly, then they'll pay you more. Or if it's a big client, a big author, then hopefully you should get more. And then on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes smaller publishing houses, like I know in Europe and Spain particularly, the publishing houses do not have as much money, so the budget will be a lot lower. And I think it's kind of remembering that you don't have to take on every job. So when the fee comes in, you can just weigh up, is this worth it to me? Is this worth my time? I think in the early days, I just said yes to absolutely everything because I was just so excited to be working on book covers, which I definitely still am. But if it's not feasible for me now, I will either ask to put it up, or sometimes I will have to say no, because you've got to be realistic with your finances. And sometimes you might find that you'll take on ones that are below your budget, but that you just really want to do it for a specific reason, like you want this piece in your portfolio, you want to work with this author, or you just want to do it. I saw Rachel Dean, the illustrator, who I've interviewed a few times for the Creative Rituals podcast, and she has so many interesting things to say on illustration, but I saw her talking, I think, on Instagram and her Substack about payment for illustration. And I think actually in the comments, her and David Dean, who's another fantastic book cover artist, were chatting about fees for illustrators. And I think David was saying that about £900-ish is what most illustrators get paid for a book jacket. But he was saying it's terrible because, I hope I don't butcher what he said here, but I think in the last 20 years he said that fee has not gone up at all, whereas in so many other industries everyone's getting paid more. So I thought that was quite interesting and food for thought, because your goalposts change all the time, right? Like if you told me a couple of years ago someone's going to pay you £1,000 for a piece of artwork, my jaw would have literally been on the floor. But then when you hear more about, you know, how it is in the industry, or you get more used to paying the jobs, yeah, I guess, as I said, your goalposts just change a bit. Obviously, bearing in mind your agent is taking a cut of that as well. So say your book cover, say you're getting paid £1,000, the overall fee would probably be closer to 1,500. So that's a brief overview. I think we'll leave it there for today. Hopefully some of that was helpful. Let me know if you have any more questions or any other topics that you're interested in illustration wise or anything wise. I am pretty much an open book, so feel free to ask me anything. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're enjoying the videos, please subscribe. It really helps new YouTubers like me out, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.